Welcome, folks. You're listening to Racing Nation Radio. This is Yoda. Tonight on Racing Nation Radio, my special guest is Lewis Satterlee of TORA, the Online Racing Association. And we're going to dig in with Lewis a little bit, find out exactly what TORA is all about, where it came from, how many folks are racing there, what you can find racing, the type of series that they're actually up and running with, where they plan on going throughout 2016 and beyond. It's all that and probably a little bit more tonight with Lewis. And before I turn it over to Lewis to get some information started, I'm just going to go ahead and mention that Lewis is actually he is the best hired gun kart racer that I've ever had the pleasure to race with. So welcome to the program, Lewis. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for inviting me on board, and I appreciate the compliment of best hired kart racer. You interviewed my buddy Eric Figueres. He actually blew my doors off whenever we did the 6 hours at Bushnell Motorsport Park last year, and he was my teammate on the kart. He was like some 15 seconds a lot faster than me, it seems like.
So what you're saying is if we go back to endurance karting, that I either need to figure out how to fire you and hire him or just hire you both and probably just sit out of the kart.
Go ahead and hire us both, actually, because we actually did a pretty good team. We ended up finishing second in that event.
I would imagine, yeah.
9 laps or something like that.
So Nix and I will just get you, Eric, and Jake Perkins to race, and Matt and I will just sit there and talk about it and be all fat and happy.
It could work out. And
I'll calculate improper fuel strategy so we can try to battle back towards the end, because that made it a lot of fun. Just in case, just catch people up on this, Lewis and I and a few other journalists actually raced not this year's but last year's 24 Hours of America kart race in the endurance karting season, I guess. Endurance karting is an organization you can just arrive and drive their karts. They run all over the East Coast, and they put on an amazing event, and we are happy to have gotten to take part in that. It was a lot of fun. Now that we've got all the silliness out of the way, actually the silliness is never going to stop, we are going to shift gears, though, and start talking about TORA, the Online Racing Association. Where exactly, or when exactly, I guess is a better way to put it, when did TORA get its start, and what platforms are you guys primarily using? It's just to clarify, this is simulated racing, so it's something that you can do in your den or in your man cave or your woman cave, for that matter. When did TORA get up and running?
That was about 9 years ago. The current owner, I guess you could say, he's also known as the president of TORA, named Matt Hunter. He just was doing the online racing thing with an Xbox and with Forza Motorsport, and he just went to different organizations that called themselves online racing leagues, and basically he didn't like the product for what it was, so he decided to create his own. And essentially 9 years later, here we are. We're absolutely massive and kind of trying to kick off the U.S. side to where we can go and do our own thing at the same time while the UK one runs nonstop like it always has and everything. And then we still get together and have some of the major series going on, which we can talk about here in a little bit. But that's essentially how TORA came to be. Just somebody wasn't happy with online racing leagues and decided to create his own to how he thought it should be, and haven't looked back since, really.
And it got its start on the original Forza platform, on the original Xbox, I'm guessing, is what you're saying. And has it stayed true to the Xbox platform and Forza the entire time, or has it branched out to any other platforms? Or if you're going to race with TORA, you're racing on the Xbox. Is that how it works?
Yeah, we still stick with Forza because it's the tried and true tested thing. But right now there are other platforms. Like, for instance, we have the GT Championship going on Project Cars for the Xbox, okay, which is actually sanctioned by the British GT Championship.
Right.
So we managed to score that one. So we're the official virtual partner of the British GT Championship going on there. And also right now, CJ Wilson Racing, they just came on as a partner. We have the CJ Wilson Racing Cup, which is all just tuned up Porsche Caymans on Forza. And just announced on Saturday is a series that I run, again, on Forza, which you could kind of see a pattern because it's the tried and true thing,
Right.
where we just announced Season 3 of IndyCar Series, which that'll be kicking off its first race the weekend after the Real World Indy 500. And we also have Endurance Championship, which is basically the World Endurance Championship. You have full-length races, day to night, also run, again, on Forza. But also, I think we have, and they're going to kill me if I get this wrong, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We have iRacing for the PC as well. We have a series there, and I think we just do Spec Miatas there, but I could be wrong.
If you're going to do anything on iRacing, the Spec Miata is not a bad place to start. That's still my favorite car in that sim. It behaves just like the real world counterpart. It's a very, very well put together package.
Well, unfortunately for me, I've actually never got to try iRacing, and I don't have a wheel and I don't have a PC that can really compute that. So if anybody out there that's listening wants to hook this guy up, hey, that'd be wonderful. You'd be my favorite person.
Willing to take contributions, are we?
Yeah.
Well, if you can ever get up here to Birmingham or get up to Atlanta, man, I can hook you up with the Simcraft guys. We can set you in an Apex and blow your mind, and then no matter what you sit in front of, if it's not an Apex from that moment on, you're going to be like, it could be so much better.
Yeah, exactly.
It ruins you for everything else. So shifting gears back to Forza, TORA got its start on the original, on Forza Motorsport, and it has evolved over the years, obviously, and is now running, I think, solely the Forza 6 platform, which is, for lack of a better way to put it, absolutely stunning. I actually have a Thrustmaster, whatever the Thrustmaster Forza compatible, Xbox One compatible wheel is, and the feel in the steering wheel on Forza 5 and 6 through that wheel is nothing short of phenomenal. It actually weights and unweights the wheel properly, which the only simulation on PC that really does it properly is R-Factor 2. R-Factor 1 kind of had it, but R-Factor 2 really got it down pat. But in Forza, if you drive into a corner and you transition from grip to understeer, you feel the wheel get light, you lift off the throttle, you leave the wheel alone, the weight builds back in the wheel just like it does in a real car. It's actually stunning. So for those of you running out there that don't have a steering wheel, look at that Thrustmaster setup. It's not a bad way to go. And Fnatic also does a really good job. Neither solution's cheap.
And actually, sorry to interrupt you there, Yoda, but if you're going to have an Xbox and you want to play Forza, the more money you spend on the wheel, the better off your experience is going to be. Because if you have a cheap one, you're going to have a massive dead zone, dead in the middle, where you're going to be at 90 degrees before the wheel starts actually turning in the game. So I don't know why it is with this platform in particular, but a cheaper wheel, it's not great. It's better to go ahead and spend the money and essentially get the bang for your buck. Yeah,
I mean they're out there. That Thrustmaster wheel that I got, I found it. It's typically a $450 wheel and pedal set, and I found it for less than $200, brand new.
Dude, you stole it.
I know that. I do realize that, but if I found it, that means they're out there. You can find them, and even if you're spending $450, what I will say though, with the Thrustmaster setup, the pedals that come with the Xbox compatible wheel, it's the Thrustmaster TX. The pedals are kind of throwaways, to be honest. It's just a 2-pedal set. It's not very impressive. It's very lightweight. What you'd want to do is grab you the upgraded pedals, which are the same ones that come with the T500 Thrustmaster setup, and it's a 3-pedal set. It's built tough. It's actually got some heft to it. They don't slide out from under your feet every time you hit the gas and the brake. It's definitely worth the upgrade, and I think that's a couple $100 upgrade, but more than worth it when it comes to just immersing yourself into the world of Forza Motorsport, which is getting better and better and better. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about this partnership you've got with CJ Wilson. I've driven that car, and I drove it at VIR, and we did a little bit of a, I don't know, I turned on our Facebook live stream and basically had some fun with the thing around VIR and had an absolute blast. I need to jump into that series, so talk a little bit more about the series, what you got going on there, and we'll switch gears into how people can get involved, man. I mean, it's definitely something that I think listeners to Racing Nation Radio want to get involved with.
Yeah. Where to start, really? Basically, the car that we were racing, it was developed by the drivers themselves that race for CJ Wilson Racing, who are big fans of the Forza Motorsport franchise themselves. They hopped on, they built the Porsche Cayman road car as close as they could to the actual version GT4 race car that they race out there in the real world and everything. And then they gave us essentially the build for us to use for everybody, to pass along to everybody else as the official spec series build. So we had that aspect, and those very guys also joined in on the series to race up against these other guys, because if you read any of the press releases on it, CJ Wilson himself said Nissan was able to prove that this concept does work. Who's to say that we can't do it also? So I'm not saying that's what the grand prize is right now. I think the grand prize is a bunch of CJ Wilson race gear right now, and also they have a photo contest with Continental Tire right now, to where if you win the photo contest, you get a free set of Continental tires for your road car.
Nice.
That ain't cool. Right? That's a good partnership to have right there.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
So, and it all came to be really because of Declan Brennan, who is one of the marketing managers for CJ Wilson Racing. He posted it out there, like, here's the livery out here on the website that you can go ahead and get it and download it and race it on your car, and we want to see all the photos. And then basically Matt, who we talked about earlier, the organizer of TORA, approached Declan and said, like, yeah, we can run a series like this or whatever. And then Declan responded back, we would support you. So basically it all became hands on deck right then and there on that.
Right.
So, and it's just literally, I think that's the fastest a series has ever come together on tour, because I think it was only 2 weeks, and from the time it was initially discussed to the time it was announced, and a week later they were racing.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got someone as strong as CJ and Continental Tires, you jump.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anybody that can join in, I mean, it's not too late right now. Actually, this Wednesday, I believe, is the next race. So go on to the onlineracing.association.com, onto the forums, register, go ahead and sign up and get yourself a TORA race number and come racing with us. And I think there's 9 more races left in the championship. So if you want to win the championship, because there is one dropped round out of the series, you've already missed round 1, you can still jump into it and possibly win the whole thing.
Where are you running tomorrow night?
I'm sorry?
Where are you running tomorrow night? Where are you racing? Where's the series going to?
Tomorrow night, I believe they're at Sebring. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, it's a championship I can't participate in because I do extracurricular stuff outside with my real world on Wednesday night. So
I get it.
That's kind of the bummer side for me. But, I mean, I'll sit there, I'll talk about it and promote it all day long. So.
Well, I think I might have to jump in and do a little Racing Nation live stream tomorrow night from that. It sounds like a heck of a good time. How many folks can race online at one time in Forza 6? I honestly can't remember the number off the top of my head.
Yeah. In a lobby right now, it's a maximum of 24. That was just recently expanded with this game. Before it was 16. The year before it was 12, or the previous generation was 12. So, I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, obviously, it's not PC numbers where you can get, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not big on the PC, you can practically get an infinite number of drivers on a PC game.
Yeah, it just kind of depends on will the servers handle it, what's the computing power for what's everybody's rig at home basically capable of handling. I've actually run at Le Mans on an older version of software. We've put 100 cars on track on what was a high-end rig back in the day, and we ran 100 cars at Le Mans and had fun with it. So But to be fair, I mean the models in the Forza series now are, I mean, we're talking 500,000 poly model plus, whereas the models that we're talking about running 100 cars of were 20,000 polygons basically. It's a different world of detail when we're dealing with the current generation console tech.
And it's not only that; it's also the environment that you go into as well. I mean, as the race goes on in Forza, you see the marbles build up on the outside of the track. So it's as much as a visual experience as it is a physical simulation experience, although some people would argue that Forza is not an actual simulation type software and everything. But, I mean, nothing's going to beat a PC software game, regardless when it comes to physics. So unlimited computing power in comparison.
Nothing beats the PC just because the PC is set up to be more of a simulation, and the console stuff, while having that simulation engine running underneath, they tend to tweak the simulation to give you a little more of a console aspect. A few years back, I was working with SimCraft, and we actually had we partnered with Forza at Road Atlanta for their launch of their support of the American Le Mans series. So we had 2 simulators at Road Atlanta running Forza 4. I think it was 4.
I was going to say that would be 4.
Yeah, it was 4 on on SimCraft's Apex 3 pitch, roll, and yaw motion platforms. And I was sitting in the first of the simulators that we got fired up. And I'm sitting there, and we're starting to dial the motion in. And they brought a dev rig, a development Xbox, and 2 slave Xboxes. And we were running 3 screens. And the dev rig was basically sending the physics out to a laptop, and the laptop was controlling our motion actuation. So we were pulling physics directly from the Xbox and running it on the Apex 3. And we were running an LMPC car at Road Atlanta. And the first time I drove the car into turn 7 at Road Atlanta and really loaded up the left side of the car, I came off the corner, and I stopped, and I was laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing. And there were two guys from the physics team at the track, and one of them came running over, and he's like, what's the problem? And I was like, I don't think there's a problem at all. I have a question. And he just kind of looked at me with this really puzzled look on his face, and I was like, I think I'm feeling something, and I really want to know if I'm right. And I'm feeling through the roll in the Apex chassis. I feel the suspension roll a little bit. I feel the car rotate through the yaw, and then I feel a little extra roll that feels like sidewall deflection. And he got the biggest grin on his face that you could possibly get on a human being's face. And he was like, how can you feel that? I was like, well, our roll is very sensitive, and I could feel it rotate, set, roll over on the suspension, and then I felt it roll over on the sidewall like you do in a real car. And he was just like, yeah, we modeled that. And the conversation got pretty in-depth and geeky after that, but to say that Forza doesn't have a proper sim engine underneath it is completely and totally wrong. I mean, they really, really know their stuff when it comes to the tire calculations that they're making. They console it up. I would love to run a full sim version of Forza because I think it would be potentially the most phenomenal simulation out there.
Dude, that's me speechless on that one. I don't know what to think on that.
What?
That's the first I've actually heard of that. I honestly had no idea they went that in depth. I mean, obviously I don't have a simulator to be able to make it that sensitive to feel it, because after all, I just use a controller. But that's really impressive in itself. If it was all the way back to Forza 4 days,
it was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. Like I really couldn't believe what I was feeling, and he confirmed it right there. And I can't remember the gentleman's name. I wish I did, but. And then a couple years later, I was working for SRT, and I actually got to go to Turn 10 out in Kent, Washington, and I did an interview with what's Dan Grinwald? Is it Grinwald?
Yep.
did an interview with Dan and his team, and they had just put a bunch of SRT vehicles into Forza 5, I believe it was back then, and unfortunately, I did an interview in Turn 10 Studios, and it never saw the light of day, and it kills me to this day, because it's like, it might be the favorite interview that I've ever done for anyone. I had so much, I didn't want to leave the place. That studio is a place that you and I would want to move in, Lewis. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've seen all the pictures, and just from pictures alone, which doesn't do it justice, I'm sure.
It makes
me want to move in just by looking at those.
Yeah, it's just I couldn't stop smiling the whole time I was there. There's a little drool coming out of like the left side of my mouth the whole time. I probably looked. I didn't probably look. I definitely looked.
You look like Homer Simpson with a big old donuts right now.
Yeah, I was a total fanboy, man. It was bad, but I was so happy. All right, let's get back to the topic at hand. So
we get distracted incredibly easy. Do
what?
We get distracted incredibly easy.
Yeah, it's shiny, and off we go. So back to the GT4 Cup. GT4 Cup up and running. Go to TORA. Give them the website one more time so people can go get signed up if they'd like to go get signed up. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about the other series that TORA is running right now. So where can they find you again?
It is the OnlineRacingAssociation.com. Yes, it's incredibly long, but it's what was available at the time, unfortunately, because TORA.com leads you to some Japanese World War II memorial thing, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could just be making that up, but I don't entirely know.
Or a site that goes far beyond PG-13, probably. So
very well could be.
The OnlineRacingAssociation.com is where you can sign up, and we've talked about the CJ Wilson / GT4 race series that's running with that Porsche GT4. Now we're going to switch gears. You were talking about an IndyCar series that's getting ready to start up again. Are you guys going to run a simulated Indy 500, or are you starting somewhere else?
We're starting somewhere else. We actually just ran our second annual Indy 500, which was simulated back in February. I know, really odd. The first one that we did was last year, the weekend before the actual Indy 500, and basically we're going to try to make that a once-a-year annual event, try to make it absolutely massive. And it just felt weird having it back in February this year around. I mean, it just didn't feel like an Indy 500 at all, so we decided that next year's event, which is a year and 2 weeks away, is going to be back on the weekend before the actual Indy 500.
Yeah, it needs to be in May. Definitely needs to be in May.
This series that's coming up, it's not going to have the Indy Oval, but we will be racing on the Daytona Oval.
Okay. Oh, wow. That'd be interesting.
Oh, yeah. We did the Daytona Road Course at night last season as well. And actually, that produced very good racing, and the visibility was incredibly well as well.
Interesting, because that place is lit up like daylight almost with those Cuscos. There's a lot of lighting at Daytona. And speaking of making the series massive, when you have a 24-driver limit, and I'm assuming that you don't, I hate to assume, but I'm assuming, that you don't have like a pace car that's driven by a human being or anything like that. Do you set one car aside as like a race steward kind of thing, or how do y'all run that? And then, as a follow-up question, what if you have more than 24 people enter the race? Like if you have 300 people that want to run this Cayman Cup, how are you handling the overflow? Are you just setting up that many lobbies? How's that working?
You named it exactly. We just have that many lobbies. Obviously, we do qualifying with however many lobbies we're going to have, and depending on where you qualify, the higher lobby you get. That way it's more parity. I mean, you may not necessarily be racing at the very front end of the grid, but you're going to be around guys that are about the same pace as you. Which, I mean, in reality, those guys that know they don't have a realistic chance of winning the race outright, they have a realistic chance of winning against a bunch of guys that are roughly about the same pace as they are.
Gotcha.
So, and obviously, the higher you qualify in a higher lobby, the higher lobby will take priority. So that's how that works. And I forget what the first part of your question was there because I got distracted with explaining that. And there's a full-blown racing mentality attention span right there.
I get it, man. I get it. The other part of the question was, how are you handling like a race steward? Are you setting are you?
Oh yeah. So basically, as the race goes on, we don't actually have a pace car that goes on. Basically, the pole sitting car is the pace car. We have the pole sitter has special instructions. Like for instance, for IndyCar, the warm-up lap is 120 miles an hour until a designated point where you slow down to 60 miles an hour and the whole field grids up 2x2. Fortunately for us, we have a feature where you could save the replay if any wrong happens to you whatsoever.
Okay.
And basically with another program that comes on the Xbox called Upload, you can take a game clip where you think that you were wrong. You could bring it up to the TORA steward saying, this is where I believe I was wrong. Here's the video file, or here's the replay on my storefront or my page that I uploaded with online, and you can find it over there. And then it can be a process that lasts anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. I mean, it depends on the severity of it. And another thing you got to think about, and a lot of people kind of get angry whenever a decision doesn't come down, a lot of guys are doing this as their hobby. They have real lives. It's not like they're getting paid to sit there and go through all these stewards inquiries and stuff like that, So and I can understand some people's frustration whenever it comes to taking a long time to get those done, but at the same time, you got to think about it. It's just a hobby for people, and some people take it seriously, some people don't.
It's a hobby until it turns into something like GT Academy, and if this Cayman series that you're running now is something that CJ Wilson is seriously looking at as a way to scout talent, then it gets a little more serious. It's then you're going to have people really paying attention to what's going on, and you might have to get a little more serious with the steward position at that point.
Well, absolutely. We've already came down to round one. Already had a steward's inquiry with somebody claiming that somebody cut corners, and I don't want to jump the gun here, and I'm not entirely 100% sure, but I believe it actually turned out to be the race winner was caught cutting corners, and he got pinged on it, and I think he was DQ'd. I'm not entirely sure, so if that individual is out there listening, or if I've said something wrong, please don't hold me at gunpoint. Please don't give any backlash. This is just me trying to think off the top of my head if that's actually true or not, because I'm not entirely connected with that particular series when it comes to stewards inquiries. Nor do I want to be, really, because I'd just be pulling my hair out nonstop, I think, if that was the case for me.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. So that takes care of it, man. I just wanted to know, how you were policing, and it sounds like it's not necessarily self-policing, but it's not instant policing either. But it's a system that works. I mean, you guys have been around for 9 years. How many folks are racing with TORA? I know it. It basically grew from nothing 9 years ago. But how many people are running with you guys on a regular basis? Do you know?
It varies from series to series. Like right now, the British GT Championship. Unfortunately, on Sunday they only had 24 people sign up for the race itself. Round one, which I was a part of, we had somewhere around 50. But and this is actually season 2 of it. Season 1, which was last year, I think we were drawing nearly 200 people per event for that. Yeah, and that was actually easily the biggest event that we've been running. The TORA Endurance Championship, like I said, which is just like the FIA WEC, right now, we have a cap at 30 cars with a maximum of 4 drivers per car. Actually, I think it's a minimum of 4 drivers per car. So, I mean, you get a whole field of 30, and then you add 4. I mean, that's a lot of drivers right there just coming out just to do that event itself.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, we've actually had to turn people away because we only wanted to be capped at a certain number of entries. That way it's just easier to organize, easier to score, and stuff like that. Because, again, you do a 24-hour sports car race on Forza, it takes a little while to get the results in and stuff like that, as opposed to a PC where it could be fairly instant.
Yeah, you can't. You just can't run it a full 24 hours because there's no way to do the driver swaps and all that stuff. I get that.
Yeah, exactly. And for the IndyCar series last year, And I moved the time of when it was, because the numbers were suffering. Like the very first season we had, I think we had a regular core group of 9 guys, and I think we were averaging 12 cars per race. Season 2, we were averaging 16 core guys with about 20 cars per race. So season 3, I changed the time of it to where it's going to be run on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time, as opposed to what it was before, which was Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that way we can try and get some of the European contingent out there, and because they've been asking to come race in that series for a while, and already registration's been open for half a week, and they're slowly coming in, but we've already equaled what the core number is, and a lot of the core guys have already come back for the next season as well for that. So hopefully we're going to have a lot more numbers, and seeing how registrations open during Indy month, hopefully it'll get a lot bigger and a lot more interest to come out of it.
Excellent. Excellent, and we'll definitely help you push it a little bit through Racing Nation Radio. If no one knew up until this point, it's my fault that Nick's has a simulator now, and I've been involved in motorsport simulation for, I don't even want to say how long. I actually have a simulator in my house. It's not really a simulator; it's a desk. I built a desk back in 1991, and attached the first Thrustmaster T1 wheel to it a couple years later, and it's got a Hyundai Excel seat on it. And this desk probably has 1.5 million plus virtual miles on it. And
oh wow!
While the Hyundai Excel back in the 80s wasn't a good car, one hell of a seat. It's absolutely unbelievable.
I believe it.
It's and I still have it because I can't get rid of it. You know, I mean, I've been involved in it for so long, and it's a giant passion of mine that augments the time that you spend in the real car. It really does make you better when you shift gears from simulation and jump in the real car. It has kept me sharp over the years during the periods of time where I couldn't make it to the actual track. You hop back into the real car after a little absence, and the rust falls off a lot quicker. If you've spent a lot of time in the simulator, in between hopping in and out of the real car. Having said that, let's segue back into, you've got IndyCar, you've got World Endurance, you've got the Caymans. Are there any other series that TORA's running, or are those the 3 primaries, and anything else going on with Forza?
Championship as well on Project Cars right now.
But okay, the Project Cars. So there's the 3 in Forza, 1 in Project Cars, and possibly 1 in iRacing. So there's...
Yeah, I think the one on iRacing right now is kind of in a lull. And, actually, it just hit me. We're actually getting ready to just start doing touring cars as well on Forza as well. So...
Ooh. Oh,
Yeah, full-blown racing touring cars. And actually, that one is sponsored by... Wix filters, Wix oil filters.
Is that the one where I saw like a Honda Civic with was it a Wix livery on a Honda Civic that I saw advertised, or no?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think that was a Mercedes that we had it on there.
Was it a Mercedes? Okay.
But it has the Mercedes touring car, the Toyota. I'm trying to remember them all. The BMW. I think it's heavily based off of British Touring Car Championship.
Okay.
Because that's what cars obviously are in the game. The Honda Civic is actually a world touring car, which we restricted back with power handicaps, which you can do in the game, to bring it down to a British Touring Car Championship level, because otherwise that Honda just blows the doors off of anything, even with it being front-wheel drive.
Right.
So.
All right, well, the British Touring Car Championship is a series that, going back 25 years plus, I have always had a very real dream to race in that series. Sitting here at 46 years old right now, that dream is probably past, but I've always loved that racing.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because you made a perfect connection out of this. There's currently a driver in the British Touring Car Championship named Ash Sutton. He races for MG.
Yeah.
And he, about 5 years ago, raced with us in TORA. And he was just starting to make his rise up in there, and actually all of us are still pretty good friends with him. To the best of my knowledge, he doesn't do much sim racing now because the real world racing takes up a lot of his schedule. But, I mean, he's easily one of the most humble individuals, and actually has, I think, the first person that we've ever had with TORA that has completed from literally from video game up to the real world, albeit not solely with TORA itself, but I mean, he's done it with sim racing on an Xbox, which, to the best of my knowledge, that's the first one.
That's
I
awesome.
could be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, that's the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if you went through the grids, the professional level grids of the world. If you went through all those grids and you asked people, where did you get your start racing? Most of them are going to say karting, but especially the younger generation, I guarantee you, there's a giant handful of them that would throw Forza in, from when they were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They were hopping on the console and they were having some fun, and they were using that to learn throttle control and proper lines. And I mean, you can use it to hone racecraft. You can use it for so many things above and beyond just learning the layout of a track. And most people look at simulation and they're like, oh, they just use it to learn the track. If they're only using it to learn the track, then great, but there are so many different levels to it. And even on the console, racecraft is racecraft. If I'm setting you up to try to pass you, and I've got 3 people behind me racing us for position, and we're coming up on lap traffic, and I'm trying to figure out how to use that lap traffic to set you up and get by you, but hold the guys up behind me. All of that stuff, it falls under the same category of racecraft as it would if I was doing that on a real track. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I fully agree, actually, because that's how I put all of my real-world racing experience. Actually, I learned all from a video game. This was 6 or 7 years ago, or actually 6 years ago. All I did was sim racing, and then turns out through TORA, funny enough, there's somebody else that actually lived in the same neighborhood as I did, and he raced karts, and I helped him out of a kind of a sticky situation that he got caught into, which we cannot discuss on the radio. But he said that he was going to pay me back in the best way possible one day, and then I was about to join the military. He calls me up, and literally I'm like about 3 inches away from signing my name away to go off to get sent for boot camp or what have you, and my phone's just blowing up like crazy and everything. I pick it up, and it's him, and he's sitting there like, what are you doing right now? I'm at the military office. It was like, drop everything you're doing. You're going to come race our other go-kart that we're about to get. And basically, history said itself. My first 10 races, I finished no worse than third, won Rookie of the Year, and finished second in the championship, Rookie Year. All off of video game experience. Never raced anything competitively in my life.
It works, man. It's a talent detector. I've been working in simulation professionally for 12, 13 years now, and every single person that hops in that seat, I can tell you within 2 laps whether they race, have an aptitude for racing, or are racing at a professional level, or seriously they're a gamer basically. It's you can use it as a talent detector. You can tell who has the understanding to lay down the right lap, and you can really use it to see what level someone's at with their racecraft, especially even if they're running with the AI to a certain extent, because you can establish patterns and stuff with the AI if you're really switched on, and you can see what the computer control vehicles are doing around you, use that to your advantage. And yeah, it gets repetitive after a while, but while you're in the process of figuring all that out, that's doing nothing but upping your situational awareness, and all that stuff pays dividends when you hop in the real car. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's been enlightening, sir. It's definitely been enlightening, and I appreciate your time. Is there anything going on later in 2016 with TORA that we haven't talked about that you want to get out there? Are you guys running? I know you run some 24-hour races every once in a while. Are you guys running a Le Mans this year?
We are, actually. That's the next one that is for the TORA Endurance Championship that we'll be doing. And I believe that's the last one for LMP1 spec cars, and then we go on to like the 24 hours of Spa and the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, where it's going to be GT-only cars.
Gotcha.
But there's another series that is coming up that I can't release details on exactly because we haven't announced it on our radio show just yet.
Right.
But whenever that detail comes out and everything, you can definitely press that one along, and that's definitely probably the series that made TORA what it is today, and it's finally coming back after a 3-year hiatus because Forza 5 didn't really offer us very much whenever that game came out on the new platform.
Gotcha.
But 6 has come out, given us a lot of more content, and we're able to actually pick up on this particular championship again.
Awesome. All good stuff, man. All good stuff. I know I've kept you about 10 minutes longer than you wanted to be awake this evening. I know you got to get up early in the morning. Just to recap.
Yeah, that does come early. So.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Just to give a recap, we've been talking with Louis Satterlee of TORA, the Online Racing Association. This is Sean Yoder. This is Racing Nation Radio. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you want to get some serious simulation under your belt, go check out the Online Racing Association. The guys know what they're doing. They've been at it for 9 years, and they'll welcome you with open arms. I joined TORA about a year ago. I've run races sporadically. I've run 4 or 5 races over a year, and I'm just not home enough to run it as often as I'd like to. But having met Louis in person and raced with him in a kart race, 24-hour kart race, and then just met the people online, it's a great group of people, and you'll have a lot of fun doing it. So again, TORA, the Online Racing Association. Go check them out. This is Sean Yoder for Racing Nation Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you again soon.